Well, good morning, everyone. Good to have you with us, those of you online, and good to see everybody here at our board meeting this morning. This will be our last meeting of the year. We have Christmas right around the corner, so good to get together. Josh, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This meeting will be simultaneously translated to Spanish. Claudia and Isidra will be translating for us today. Could you go ahead and give them the instructions, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, sir. Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos. Los servicios de interpretación en español van a estar disponibles de una manera simultánea. Para tener acceso a este accesorio de interpretación, favor de fijarse en la parte inferior de su pantalla. En unos momentos van a notar que se lanzó un símbolo de mundo, un globo terráqueo. Pueden hacer un clic y se les va a pedir que hagan una elección a favor de elegir el idioma en español y hagan otro clic. Y de esa manera pueden escuchar la junta. Ahora, si tienen acceso a esta junta por medio de su celular o alguna tableta, ustedes van a notar 3 puntitos en la pantalla, ya sea a mano derecha, en la parte inferior o superior, y van a notar abajo de ella una palabra que dice More o más. Hagan un clic y de esa manera pueden seleccionar de nuevo el globo terráqueo, otro clic, y elegir el idioma en español, y de esa manera pueden disfrutar de esta junta de una manera simultánea. Muchas gracias. Estamos a sus órdenes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Back to
very
you.
much. If you would at this time, please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Josh, could you do a roll call for us this morning?
Yes, sir. Rachel Arizmendi,
Present.
Don Cameron. Here. Sinead DaCosta. Mike Gallo. Eric Holst. Glenda Humison. Here. Julia Jackson. Bryce Lumberg. David Mancera. Present. Michelle Passero.
Here.
Gloria Robinson.
Here.
Frank Salazar. Here. Joy Sterling. Patricia Stock. Chris Valadez.
Here.
As president, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Josh. And Eric is also here. All right, you have been sent the minutes for the November 7th meeting. We need an approval.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion, any corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, Secretary, it is time for the departmental update. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. So instead of what we did this month at CDFA, I'm going to do more of a reflection on the year at CDFA. It's been filled with a lot of travel that didn't happen over the last 2 years, including a Climate Smart Ag delegation to Spain and a number of trade opportunities that were presented to help promote California grown. See the tremendous opportunities. In particular, several of those trips are to Southeast Asia. And that is very, very promising for our future. And that was reinforced at APEC, which have we met since we had APEC? I can't remember. Everything's a blur. We should have had photos up here of the fabulous, fabulous booth that was in the entry of the convention center, where all delegates had to come in each day and provided the perfect backdrop of California grown, California agriculture, visit California, that people stopped to get pictures because it was fantastic. Josh helped spearhead all of that. It was sponsored by California Grown and Visit California. And one of our IT staff members created the large format backdrops that it was, I'm telling you, it was fabulous. We had a constantly playing video at one point that really stitched together a number of ag videos from different organizations, integrated with California Wine, which always has wonderful visuals, integrated with Visit California. But while someone was doing the business of being a leader in a trade association in Hawaii, he was also a star in the governor's video, which is on the front desk. The governor had fabulous shots of all the things that happen in California that really show what California is about, including about 3 to 4, ooh, you're blushing, 3 to 4 minutes of a visit that the governor paid to Don's farm probably 2 years ago. The two of them on an ATV going across the landscape, stopping in the field, visiting with farm workers. Did you really let him? He didn't drive. They were seeding tomato plants
I tried to get him on the planter, but he declined.
as, liability issues. That was good. That was good.
But yeah, he took his photo with several of the farm workers that were on the planter, which they were thrilled to death with.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun because I'd never seen that video before. So I think I texted you. Anyway, that's just kind of a writ large, but I wanted to go through some of the programs and just give you some sense of the impact that we have. First of all, there are the things that we do every day and every week and every year. And I'm very mindful of that, especially with the extraordinary exotic fruit fly season that we're having. We've actually gone from every 2 weeks to every week, providing updates to industry as some of these quarantines are growing larger and impacting more and more of the farming community itself, in addition to the importance of how we work with our urban residents when we're doing our eradication programs. The citrus program and the Pierce's disease program for the grape sector continue to do just outstanding work to prove that while we look for the long-term solution to a disease that kills the tree or the vine that's vectored by an exotic pest, that we have found ways to successfully contain that, to prevent it from doing the kind of wipeout of an entire sector of agriculture that can sometimes happen. And that's what we're focused on. We had an excellent meeting last week with Custom Border Protection, high-level managers from DC, in addition to our APHIS partners, and really all reinforced our commitment to one another to eradicate the multiple fruit fly finds that we've had this year and continue to keep our free farm status, which is critical to being able to ship product across the county, the country, and the world. So really want to call out the hard work of all those people. As you may be aware, we have highly pathogenic avian influenza in the state of California. Started out with just a couple of very isolated finds in the Central Valley. We've now added a couple of houses to that. And also have finds in Sonoma County, where the total population of the flocks may not compare to what we have in the Central Valley, but it's high impact for those longtime family businesses that have this. And our staff is working very, very hard, 24/7 weekends, containing that with our partners from the federal government. In addition to the stuff that they do, I just saw a number that on an annual basis, our 45 brand inspectors actually go and do inspections to verify ownership of almost 4 million head of cattle on an annual basis. That's just one of those little trivia things. But this was a significant year. We continue to be the only state with a state sanctioned and mandated antimicrobial stewardship program, continue to do new species work on that and create new tools to help our producers and the veterinarians to mitigate and minimize antibiotic use unless it's medically necessary. And then, of course, this was the year, and perhaps Haig's going to mention that. I don't know what Haig's here to talk about, Josh. But this was the year that California stood up for voter values in the pigs and defended successfully Prop 12 in the Supreme Court. We've seen a number of pictures that have been posted at various outlets, retail outlets. This is California compliant Prop 12 pork products in particular, as people prepare for January 1. We'll see how much is in the pipeline and the continuation of product, but we have every reason to believe, based on the outreach and the inspections and the certifications that have been done, that we should be able to minimize any potential disruption for the pork supply. Obviously, cage-free eggs have been around California for quite some time. So I just think that's worth calling out by our dedicated staff there. Fairgrounds this year, we were able to award almost $150 million for fairgrounds to do. This was really limited to major scale upgrading of fairgrounds strategically located in the state for climate resiliency and emergency response. We have millions of dollars of deferred maintenance. We're not the only state agency that suffers that. We have it in our fairgrounds. We have it in our lab facilities, despite the new labs that are being built, but we're not the only agency that suffers that. A couple of years ago, we were awarded $150 million, and this year we were able to announce 12 major projects. And as I said, they're strategically located, really understanding what they could offer as a well-known centralized location. And so that was exciting to see the responses to that and the infrastructure that will be added that will aid not only for those emergency responses, but enhance the value of these as community gathering and community building spaces for those awards that were made. For inspection services, I lose count of the millions and millions, probably billions of pounds of tree nuts and fresh produce that's inspected on a routine basis. The over 1,000 farmers markets that in our partnership with, our ag commissioners that are certified farmers markets. The number of organic farmer certifications that we issue is the state with the largest population of farms, and yet it's still only about 2% of the total acreage or less than that of irrigated farmland acreage that's certified organic. But just this past week, the Organic Grower Summit was held, and that reinforced the growth in certified organic products in the marketplace, reached the $60 billion mark. So it is definitely continues to be a growth opportunity for the farmers that are in that space. And so we hope to continue seeing certified organic acreage grow in the state of California. It's also at Inspection Services as part of our feed program that in the last year, approximately 18.5 million tons of byproducts from ag processing, diverted from what would potentially be food waste going into landfills, is diverted and upscaled into feed or biofuels or other useful products. One of the economic development projects under the Community Economic Resiliency Fund is in Northern San Joaquin, and it's really looking to bring the new science, new technology to adding even more value to those quote unquote waste streams to repurpose them to useful products. And I know Glenda, your shop is involved in that one as well. Very exciting progress being made in that. But it's also Inspection Services that houses our farm to fork office. That was a gift from then a previous speaker who really wanted to see that office to house the better connection of what we produce in this state to ensure access to all Californians for healthy, nutritious food. So they have our Senior Farmers Market program, which got additional grant money this year. And our partnership with the California Association of Food Banks will benefit from one of the grants that we are doing as a subcontractor with Department of Social Services for the local food procurement, $14.1 million. That primarily focuses on supporting local food producers, small scale farmers, and historically underserved farmers, making sure that we're getting culturally appropriate food boxes with all that fresh produce into our local communities. We have our what we call the GASNET program, which is California Nutrition Incentive Program that leverages federal dollars so that we can help more people get twice the redemption value of their coupons for fresh produce at farmers markets. An exciting program. And then this year we did another $8.5 million of refrigeration grants. This started out to focus on corner stores and food markets to really put in energy efficiency, cooling systems so more fresh produce could be sold. It has also expanded. It's been able to fund some mobile food trucks to make sure we're getting fresh produce to areas where they don't grow it being available. And so that's been a great program. That is also what houses our Farm to School program, which this year added another $60 million. We're reaching over 1.6 million students with healthy food programs. And we were able to hire, because hiring is becoming really challenging these days, 11 of our 16 regional navigators to really be about that connector between local food producers and our school system. We believe that part of the infrastructure is going to be really valuable as more and more healthcare systems and healthcare providers are looking at similar types of efforts to really increase healthy food that's more readily available and the information to help consumers know how to prepare it and eat healthy. And so that's just been a huge program. We're very fortunate to be able to house that program. Two other programs sorry for taking so long. Climate Smart Agriculture, over $500 million that has gone through just the Department of Food and Agriculture for our programs, Healthy Soils, on-farm water use efficiency that also reduces energy use and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Our methane reduction program, we're still the only state, one of the few governments that has mandates for meeting livestock emission reductions, and our dairy families are leading the way on that. In that regard, we also sponsored the first ever State of the Science on enteric fermentation to identify the solutions and what the barriers still are. As a result of that, the legislature awarded us $25 million for a pilot program that will be launching in early 2024 to do, as soon as it gets registered, some pilot programs with dairy producers on feed additives. And the news out of FDA, which is in charge of registering those products, is very hopeful that we'll have at least one or the beginning of several products registered in early 2024. So huge step forward in providing the tools and the incentives to help make that a reality. We have awarded over 100 grants for technical assistance for our Climate Smart Ag programs to make sure that all farmers know about this, that they're getting the language that helps them best apply for it. And it's part of the MOU that we have with UC ANR, the Resource Conservation Districts, and NRCS. So a lot of exciting work going on in Climate Smart Agriculture. Deputy Secretary Virginia Jameson and I leave tomorrow for the 3 days of the COP over the weekend that are really focused on food and ag, energy and water, as we think about how can we produce enough food to help people survive what we face. On the equity programs, we've done a great job. We now have formally launched and have had the first meetings of our Small Farm Advisory Committee and our BIPOC Advisory Committee. And so that's been very positive progress in that regard. We are setting targets to increase the number of bilingual certified employees at the Department of Food and Agriculture. Our goal for 2024 is to reach 200 from 145 last year. So continue to hold that out as another, it's a small scale, but it is an opportunity to add a little bit of extra pay if you want to go through the certification process to help us do all the translations that we know are necessary in the state of California. Finally, I wanted to touch on two people that are retiring that have just been, I can't imagine life without them here at CDFA. Later this month, Rob Peterson, who has been our Public Information Officer and Director of IT Services and has really helped us improve our IT services, create the roadmap so that we can show how to finance our way into out of legacy systems and a lot of ad hoc applications that aren't supposed to be happening, to help us be as efficient and responsive as we possibly can be with the IT tools. He's been instrumental in improving that set of services. He's brought on great staff people, and I hate to say goodbye to him, but I'm very happy. I wish him a very long and healthy and happy retirement. The other retirement, and she's been at CDFA even longer than Rob has been, is Kristen Macy, who is our division director for the Division of Weights and Measures. And I could talk about the most historical function of government was truing up, that a consumer was getting what they paid for. And that's been going on since the beginning of federal government. But here, we pride ourselves on not just doing those historical kinds of services, but being part of the new economy. And a few years ago, I talked to you all about using GPS for rideshare as a way to make sure, because before that, people were getting charged different prices for going the same mileage to the same place from the same place. We help make rideshare the success that it is. We also have 100,000 drivers in California that take advantage of low mileage car insurance, which uses another GPS tool, which DMS is able to do the type evaluation standards for that. We also, as a result of that kind of work, we now, as you may have read last month, 26.7% of all new cars sold in California are now zero emission vehicles. And they have to charge someplace. I mean, get charged, but charge someplace. So we now have not quite 40,000 charging stations in the state of California. That's a 50% increase from 2020. And we also, because hydrogen is going to be like a big part of the solution of the future, we have 65 light duty charging stations and 6 heavy duty charging stations for hydrogen. We expect that number to grow significantly with the emphasis on hydrogen and the ARCHES grant that was made to the state of California. So Kristen Macy, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for always truing up what it is that we measure. And just how blessed are we to have great employees to provide the leadership and always be looking to the future while we still appreciate very much the legacy of all the systems that we have. Is that enough? It's a good year. We have great staff. I can't say that enough. We have great staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. That really was a busy year. It's amazing all the things that happened, and yeah, bringing travel back again, and
Yeah.
and hopefully we continue. So we're going to move to a always enlightening discussion. We're going to be talking about a legal update on Bagley Keene. We have Haig Bagdasarian with us, the Deputy Secretary and Chief Counsel, to set us straight, to keep us out of trouble with our meetings. And I know we've been through a lot of iterations through COVID and out of COVID. So I appreciate your update. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, President Cameron and board members. Before I get started, we have a PowerPoint, but I thought it might be beneficial if you have a copy in front of you. And ask. Thank you again. I'm really glad that you've set aside brief time for us to talk about Bagley Keene Open Meeting Act. The PowerPoint that we have is really designed for a 30 to 40 minute overview, but I'm going to hit on the highlights. I'm going to try to go no more than 10 minutes and then take some questions. And I'll also say that because there have been changes, we do periodically provide trainings for the department and board members. And the next training, coincidentally, will be next Monday, and it'll be accessible via Zoom. If you haven't received the information and if you'd like to get a little bit more than what I'll be able to provide today, I encourage you all to take part. And if the time isn't convenient, it's Monday afternoon on the 11th, I believe it's starting at 1 p.m. So if the time isn't convenient, but you're interested, it will be recorded and archived for you to be able to view it later. So that'll be much more in depth than I think what we'll be able to get into today. And the PowerPoint itself touches on numerous issues. I think some are properly more geared towards staff members. I'm going to focus really more on the ones that relate to your roles as board members. But if I don't touch on anything within it or that's not included in the presentation, please feel free to ask me any questions afterwards. So I'm going to begin on slide number 3, if we can forward. And just to briefly begin with, what is the purpose of the Bagley Keene Open Meeting Act? It's ultimately, we have to talk about the State Board of Food and Ag, CDFA, as being public agencies or entities that are here to serve the California citizens. And there's a principle that agency actions must be open and accessible. And the public must be informed and involved in the agency decision-making. So these are very much integrated into all of our laws. So what Bagley-Keene does, is the first point, is that it guarantees public participation at all meetings of a state body. So that's the core of it. And it's included in the government code, starting with section 11120 moving forward. Moving briefly to slide 4, the general rule of Bagley-Keene and who the act covers is that every multi-member body that's created by statute or required by law to conduct official meetings, and every committee created by executive order are subject to Bagley-Keene. And so since the state board was created by Food and Ag Code Section 901, makes this board and all the boards, all the various advisory boards under the auspices, under the oversight of CDFA, including the district agricultural associations subject to Bagley-Keene. Gonna forward real quick to slide number 6, please. And talk about some of the do's and don'ts. And these are the ones I think that may not always be kind of intuitive, especially if coming from the private sector, because from the private sector, there's often opportunity to have deliberations privately, and in some cases it could be beneficial. But in the state, there's an overriding principle that the public needs to have an opportunity to chime in. So on that basis, there are a number of types of communications that are prohibited for board members, including serial communications or serial meetings. And I'll get into slightly more detail on those in a moment. Conference calls with multiple members outside of a noticed meeting, emails between members discussing business of the body or issues that are up before you, text messages similarly related to business that's before the board. That doesn't mean that you can't communicate on other issues socially. I mean, it's or unrelated business issues unrelated to business before the state board. But as far as items that you know are in fact on an agenda or you have reason to believe maybe, those are ones to steer away from communicating outside of the context of a meeting. Slide number 7, please, Josh. So what is a meeting? And so it seems like it should be pretty straightforward. This is a clear example of a meeting, but meetings can be created somewhat unintentionally at times just by the fact of who happens to be engaged in a conversation, who happens to be physically in the same room talking about something. So the definition is any congregation of a majority of the members of a state body at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate upon any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the state body to which it pertains. So that's the definition. But I will say that despite the fact that the focus is on a majority, because of the serial communication concern, our advice is that no more than 2 members at any given time should get together to discuss a matter related to the board's business. That's a safeguard in preventing potential for serial meetings. So call that the rule of 2. And I mean, this is important because a majority of the members may not hear, discuss, deliberate, or act in any way on any subject outside of a noticed meeting. And if the members of a board do so, it can result in litigation. Fortunately, my 3-year tenure here, we haven't had Bagley-Keene related litigation and hope to keep it that way. Moving on to slide 8 and highlighting a little bit and describing serial meetings. It can happen in a number of ways, and oftentimes the analogy that's given is imagining the CEO or the board president as the center of a bicycle wheel and members, at the end of each of the spokes. The serial communication or serial meeting can occur by communications member 1 to member 2 to member 3 to member 4. And pretty soon a subject matter has been fully deliberated by a majority of the body. Or it can happen by communications with the center, the person conducting it. It doesn't need to be the CEO or the president. A back and forth between that individual and the various others. So that can result in a serial meeting. And that's something to avoid because that would be a violation of Bagley-Keene. So moving on to slide number 9, please. Again, just highlighting some of the key things to be mindful of. We talked about the don'ts. Now, the things that aren't considered a meeting are communications and contacts between a board member and a member of the public. Attendance by a majority of you at a conference or other event that's open to the public where issues of general interest, including issues related to agriculture, are discussed. Just because agriculture is at the core doesn't make it a state board of food and ag meeting, or it doesn't prohibit your attendance or participation. Attendance by a majority of the members at an open notice meeting of another state body. So there may be crossover issues and you may want to participate in other before, whether it's the legislature or elsewhere. And attendance by a majority of members at a purely social or ceremonial occasion. So there are, I mean, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but just to give you a sense of what is a meeting and what's not a meeting. So those are things that you really don't need to worry about too much. Moving on to slide number 12, please, Josh. And I'm just really going to highlight one item on this. And you're noticing I'm skipping over the slides. As I mentioned earlier, many of those are really geared more towards staff, talking about notices and agendas. I think it's important for you to look over when you have time, but again, in the interest of time, I'm just not going to highlight them. But on page 12, the one thing that I really did want to highlight is that board members cannot discuss items that aren't on the agenda, even if no action is taken. So, at times there may be a temptation, especially if something is raised by a member of the public during a public comments, to engage. And, unfortunately, because that item hadn't been agendized, there can't be real deliberation. There can be a simple, maybe a question of clarification, et cetera. But properly, what ought to be done is to agendize that item at a future meeting to take in the information from members of the public or from one another if it's a fellow board member raising it, and discuss it when it's properly noticed at a subsequent meeting. Moving on to slide 13, and I'm just going to go through this relatively quickly, just highlighting sort of the main subject on this slide, which is use of electronic devices during meetings. Again, in order to maintain transparency, members of body should not text or email each other during an open meeting, because that would represent some communication that's happening during deliberation to which the public wouldn't have access. And moving on to slide 14, I'm going to touch on this briefly, and this has been a subject of, I think, and President Cameron kind of referred to this, that during the past 3-4 years, there's been a lot of instability in some ways and uncertainty, but in the interest of making things manageable during the pandemic, many of the rules from Bagley-Keene were essentially waived so that teleconference meetings could happen more easily. Now finally, SB 544 was proposed and was signed into law 2 months ago. And so that's going to provide a mechanism for teleconference meetings to happen indefinitely. I'm not going to get into the details, but there's a 2-year period for the next 2 years where the rules are going to be slightly different. And then in 26, other sets of rules will be different. It'll be, I think, most important for Josh, I think, to have a good grasp, and he will over time. So yeah, the SB 544 wasn't as clear as what we'd hoped, but the important thing is that it does offer the opportunity for all types of state bodies, including decision-making bodies, advisory boards and commissions, to convene remotely if necessary. And currently we're under, we're still able to have teleconferences through a bill, a trailer bill, but as of January 1st, it'll be SB 544 that codifies it, and moving forward, that's what we'll rely on. And moving to slide 17, I'm not gonna go in depth, but of course, closed sessions are something that certain boards need to use from time to time to discuss limited number of types of matters, including personnel matters pending litigation. So that's something to be aware of. Almost everything else would need to be held during public open session.
I have a quick question on that.
Yes,
Could you
yeah.
go back to the teleconference meetings and just kind of,
Yes.
what's the change that actually happens on January 1st
Okay.
in regards to noticing and for board member participation
Okay.
and for public participation as
Okay.
well?
So with respect to the public, there will be really no restrictions. And one thing I should highlight, because this is something that's sometimes staff or board members don't realize, is members of the public are not required to identify themselves to participate. Signing in or identifying themselves is purely optional. So that's one key to think. So with respect to members of the public, there will be no restrictions. With respect to directors, there will be the option to have fully in-person meeting, traditional meeting, but there will be also 2 other options in terms of having hybrid or a pure teleconference meeting for the 2-year period. This is from 24 and 25. And then the third would be a hybrid meeting whereby quorum would be required in one physical location, but a minority of members can participate remotely from other locations. So that's what makes it complicated, and that's why I think it's going to be. Yes,
Definitely.
yeah.
And so during a hybrid meeting, and my apologies for the question.
No, not at all.
For a hybrid meeting, if a board member is participating remotely, their location needs to be noticed on the agenda or not?
It does not. It does not. Then
Okay.
that's the major
Okay.
change. And thanks for, thanks for highlighting that, Josh. And that was one of the reasons that SB 544 was necessary, because we were caught in a situation that in July and August, before the trailer bill went into effect, if board members were going to participate remotely, their physical location not only needed to be noticed, but made available to the public, needed to be compliant with ADA requirements. Yeah. So yes, that is a major change which will facilitate the ability. There are also exceptions carved in for members who have mobility issues, health issues, et cetera, which kind of relaxes and diminishes sort of reduces the number necessary to achieve a quorum. So that's another highlight. But yeah, there are some nuances in terms of what'll be in place for 2 years and then in 26 thereafter.
And they have full capacity to vote and act as if they were here in person.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And as we recommend at all times for teleconferencing, it's required that the votes be by roll call. And in person, even we recommend that, roll call is the best way of recording votes, but for teleconference, that's an absolute
And
requirement.
another question on hybrid meetings back to public participation. Can public comment be made virtually
Yes,
during a hybrid meeting and a regular meeting?
yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm gonna wrap it up there. And there's more ground to cover, but I want to see if there are additional questions, which I'm happy to take. And if not, then, Josh, if I could ask that you make I'll share with you the information for the training workshop on Monday, if there's interest by any of the board members. And if there are any questions, please make my contact information available. Reach out to me directly and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
So
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question on a hybrid, if a member of the public is participating electronically, remotely, can they make public comment in the chat function in writing, or do they have to do it verbally?
That's something that's not fully addressed. And our recommendation is that it be done verbally. There are, because it complicates potential PRA requests as well in terms of capturing, recording that. So our recommendation on our council is going to be generally to disable the chat feature for public meetings and just to receive them verbally.
Okay.
Well, one thing we do need to be mindful of, though, of our members of the public who may be hearing impaired. And so we're working with AG's office, et cetera, and the governor's office, legal office to try to find the best solutions for those sorts of scenarios.
I see that Chris Valdez has a question.
Thank you, Josh. I think if I heard correctly, but I'd like clarification. So if a member of the public directs a comment to the board, but it's not of an item that was agendized in this meeting scenario, then the obligation or expectation onto the board is to not engage on that subject matter because it was not agendized. Can you restate or clarify?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, some questions of clarification would be appropriate, but if it goes beyond that into further discussion and what could be considered deliberation, that would be outside of Bagley-Keene. So the best way to handle it again is to agendize it for that matter, that item for a future meeting if the board president agrees. Yes.
And I have one other question. Apologies. Is there a requirement for public meetings to be broadcast? One, and second, is there a requirement that they be recorded if they are hybrid?
There is no requirement that they be broadcast. And as far as recording, no, that's also discretionary. It would be the one thing we'd advise is once a board adopts a certain policy, that it try to continue it in uniformity. It could raise red flags if one meeting is posted, maybe the subsequent one that's controversial is left out. So just having a consistency would be the prudent course. Any other questions?
Yeah, so this will become effective January 1, correct?
Correct. Well, yeah,
Or I know-
most of what I've discussed has been in effect for a long time.
Right.
But the teleconferencing, the changes with respect to teleconferencing will be effective January 1. Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Sorry
Really
for taking
appreciate
so much time.
the update. We may come back with your questions in the future
Okay. Thank you.
when things change. All right, next up on our agenda is the board meeting dates. Josh?
Perfect, thank you. So at our discussion at our last meeting, we did discuss the tentative dates. So this reflects that revision, and I have one change that we are looking to confirm, and I will have that information hopefully in the next week or so, and I will notify everyone. But as discussed, we will align with the first Tuesday of every month. We will not have a meeting on Tuesday, January 2nd, as a result of the holiday. On Tuesday, February 6th, we are looking to move that meeting to Tuesday, February 13th, which would align with the World Ag Expo in Tulare. I'm still waiting on kind of confirmation of venue and the availability of a couple of speakers we've identified. So if that does come through in the next week, I will send out a notice out to everyone that we would like to move it to February 13th. And Glenda has a question.
As to venue, did you talk with us about using our office across the street?
No, I have not. I just checked with the theater, but I can check across the
Well,
street. as
we
well.
have parking.
Oh, that's true. Well, we could use parking.
Magic
Yeah,
word, parking.
yeah, magic. Yeah,
And we have a big giant meeting room. I mean, that would be a logical place to
Perfect.
do it.
I'll follow up with you. Yeah, on the option on that for sure. We're waiting for kind of a speaker confirmation as well that we're trying.
Yeah, the
So-
speakers will appreciate parking as well.
And then the other suggestion by the board was that we look to combine our two meetings for April and May, because that allows us that opportunity to kind of combine. So we're looking at April 30th and May 1st as that combined meeting date, and topic is still to be determined and location, but just to notify that it is a 2-day meeting. We would have meetings both days associated with visits. So if anyone has questions on that, I assume this is good to kind of move forward with. And then I will, again, in the next week or so, confirm if February 13th is a go or if we're staying with our February 6th date. Are there any questions?
Nope. Great.
Thank you.
Next up, committee updates. We're going to begin with Janae and the Ag Vision Committee.
The Ag Vision Committee has not met since the launch of the Ag Vision to the state of California. We were really thrilled with the work that was done in the beginning, the first half of the year, to set that vision forward for the state. We are looking at potential updates throughout 2024 around progress and lining those key thematic areas for the Ag Vision as we progress on our way to different meeting topics throughout the year, to keep all of us, the public included, apprised of progress. But from actual getting the word out, we do feel it was successful. The secretary was instrumental, along with the president of the state board and other members of the state board, in doing local outreach, local speaking sessions, and getting others to get more education around what does the Ag Vision mean for their individual commodities and their individual regions.
Thank you, Janae. Any questions?
Wanted to add
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just want to ask a little note. At Chico State, we had a class that is called Ag Issues, and it was dedicated the whole semester to tackle the Ag Vision.
Wow, very nice.
And the students, over 50 students, became acquainted with the plan and had discussions, debates, got familiar with that. So,
Very good.
yeah.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that people are aware, because of how many specific requests I've had to speak to boards of different commodity groups and trade associations, specifically about Ag Vision and how they can be a part of it. And then we used Ag Vision throughout the Ag Tech events. This year, I've now completed 11 Ag Tech events at community colleges around the state. And especially the Next Generation Talent and Tools is very captivating for the people that we're speaking to. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going.
Right. And I also wanted to add, I know that we have done some great work. I know that we'll have an update from our Regenerative Ag Committee climate meeting, but one of the things is that as part of the vision was kind of a regenerative agriculture piece. So we are moving forward on that as kind of a department board effort, joint effort. And then we also are working on with Glenda's kind of leadership as well as secretary in regards to the master plan for research, which was also contained kind of as part of the ag vision. So the strategies are moving forward slowly, but it's engagement and working together with everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. Regenerative Ag is our next committee report. Doria?
So we haven't met as a committee, but we have met a lot as just individuals working to move the project forward. Myself, Josh, folks from Sacramento State. And it's actually pretty exciting. We have our first listening session happening tomorrow, December 6th, 12 o'clock. It's an online listening session. It'll be the first of 5 listening sessions that are going to happen between December tomorrow and May of next year. There'll be a variety of different kind of formats, mostly online. And after that, a task force will meet in a series of 3 meetings to try to wrestle with all we've heard and come up with some recommendations for this board. And the plan is to have recommendations to the board by June or July of next year. So it's kind of an exciting process. There's a lot moving, and we're starting it tomorrow. Yeah.
I hear you've got quite a few signed up for that meeting already too.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know what the latest number is, but it's a lot.
250.
Yeah.
250?
215.
Wow. Really?
Wow.
Oh, we should make that part of the title of every state board meeting. Glenn.
Yes, exactly. We could fill the room again.
There you go.
Joy, you had a question?
Yes, what is the format of the meeting? I'm curious how that's going to go.
The format for the listening session. So the beginning will start with kind of an opening introduction by our facilitator, and will be followed by a short overview presentation, which Doria and I will do jointly. We were having Jeff Delott from the Environmental Farming Act Science Advisory Panel provide an overview of the framework process. And then there are specific 2 to 3 questions that the facilitator has kind of created for the participants to kind of respond to. And then we will listen to open public comment.
I'm sorry, and the participants are,
So the participants are open to the public. So it was a press release that went out, I think, at the beginning of actually the middle of November. I think we sent the press release out for public participation.
no, but I'm saying, so when 3 questions go out, so 215 people answer 3 questions?
If they can. So basically it's very similar to the farmer-led climate solutions forums that we did with the Sac State that facilitated. And so if you're wanting to make public comment, it's basically a normal Zoom meeting that is facilitated. It's not a webinar. So individuals will raise their hand and they can respond and provide comments.
And some have responded in writing.
How much time is dedicated to the meeting?
It's open-ended right now.
Just curious. Thank you.
And how will we get a summary of, I mean, I'm planning on being there, but will there be a compilation of, will the facilitator be?
Yes, we're working with Sac State to provide kind of a summary, and then that information will also be provided to the task force once it's assembled to kind of provide comments and thoughts on. So the board will be aware of that process going forward.
Very exciting.
And Josh, just a question. Do we confirm that we're going to have the focus group that are specific to regen ag practitioners? Or
We not on the process yet. We're still working on that one.
yeah, so we're still working on that. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that that is said.
Yes.
That we are as a group still working to make sure that we can have a focus group of folks that have been deeply involved in regenerative agriculture. So they have a focused time to give us feedback and their thoughts on the issue. I think it's important to make sure we include that.
Thank you, Doria. Appreciate that. And Josh, for the information. Our water committee,
Can I ask a question? This is Michelle. Sorry, I've seen my hand up.
Sorry, Michelle.
sorry.
That's okay. So I just curious then for the process, you mentioned a task force. So what is the expectation for, I guess the board committee on climate and regenerative ag and the task force? So those are two different things, or is there a plan for that kind of interaction or coordination at all?
So the committee is a subset of the board, correct? So the task force, some of the membership, I would assume, will include members of the committee, but will also provide members of the public as well as individuals engaged within that space. That task force will consider the public comment and then provide, which is facilitated by the same facilitator that is doing the listening sessions that we're having. They will make a recommendation, and that recommendation will come to the board for consideration before the board moves it forward. So the board could then at that point refer it back to the committee or move it forward to as a recommendation to the secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Sorry, we missed your hand there. All right. Water Committee report, Josh?
Yes, Bryce Lundberg is our committee chair for the Water Committee. Following our November 7th board meeting, there was kind of direction for the Water Committee to have a meeting to discuss public comment on an amendment to the Bay Delta Plan that the staff of the State Water Resources Control Board had created. The committee had its meeting last Monday and went through kind of a staff draft recommendation. You see that staff draft recommendation of a letter for public comment in your drafts here. And I would entertain, or I'll ask the chair to entertain a motion for approval.
Right. Those of you, I think, have had a chance to take a look at the letter. I apologize. I was not at the meeting, unfortunately, but they voted to move this forward. Is that correct? Approved to the board?
Yes, the staff draft as before you was approved by the committee to move to the board.
All right. I'd like to call for a question on here. If we could have a motion to accept the letter and move it forward to the secretary and actually to the State Water Resources Control Board, secretary and the governor. Is that correct? Or is it just going to go, is this just? Yep. As we said, this is a draft letter, and really we'd like the motion to have the staff do the final write-up of this letter and move it forward with my approval. Thank you, Joy. Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Sorry, this is Michelle. Can I haven't had a chance to share this. I need to check internally with TNC because I know this is an area that we work on. So if I can abstain, I know if this is a vote now, I'll just need to abstain.
No problems.
No problem. Let me do a
Really-
roll call on that.
Yeah, let's do a roll call that way. It was recommended that we do that as well, since we do have.
But this is a motion to get a final letter.
This is a motion to approve the chair to work with staff to finalize the letter as prepared for submission as public comment to State Water Resources Control Board.
Right.
Rachel Arizmendi. Aye. Don Cameron.
Aye.
Janae DaCosta. Mike Gallo. I'm not sorry. Eric Holst.
Aye.
Linda Humiston.
Aye.
Julia Jackson.
Aye.
David Mancera.
Aye.
Jill Passero.
Abstain.
Doria Robinson.
Aye.
Frank Salazar.
Aye.
Joy Sterling.
Aye.
Tricia Stock. Chris Valdez.
Aye.
We have 12 ayes and 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, board members. All right, our next item is
So if I
Wanna
may
move on to priority for
continue
topics?
on the committee, I know that there was, my apologies.
sorry.
There was interest of board members to have an overview of who currently serves on the committees and then to see if there would like to be any additions or changes. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of review that, if I may. So for the Water Committee, we currently have Bryce Lundberg, Mike Gallo, Linda Humiston, Eric Holst, Frank Salazar, and Don Cameron. Bryce Lundberg currently serves as chair. For the Ag Vision Committee, we have Janae DaCosta, Rachel Arizmendi, Chris Valadez, Patricia Stock, Glenda Humiston, and Don Cameron. And Janae DaCosta currently serves as chair. For the Regenerative Ag Committee, we have Doria Robinson, Joy Sterling, Chris Valadez, Janae DaCosta, Michelle Pissarra, Patricia Stock, and Julia Jackson. And Doria Robinson currently serves as chair. We also at that meeting or during your designation also had Farm to Family liaisons, which was to work very closely with the California Association of Food Bank and kind of keep our commitment of working with the food bank associations and moving forward farm to food bank kind of donations. And those liaisons are Bryce Lundberg, David Mancera, Janae DaCosta, and Frank Salazar. So I know that there was a couple of board members that had expressed interest in joining or removing themselves from a committee. So I just wanted to entertain thoughts at this time.
Do we have anyone that would like to either be added to the committee or be removed from the committees? No? Looks like looks like we have.
Yeah, so
David?
if there's room, I'm just trying to remember why I wasn't added to the regenerative ag committee. I mean, if there's room, I'd love to participate in that committee.
We would love to have you.
Thank you.
Sounds good, David.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah. You have a free day tomorrow. Anyone that is online virtually have any preference, any changes? Okay. I think we're good then. All right, we'll move on to board meeting priorities and topics for this coming year. We'll open that up to all the board members.
So one thing I'd like to refresh the board with as we kind of go forward in looking at planning for 2023 is to really revisit kind of the 5 pillars that we have of Ag Vision. I included kind of the most recent, the Ag Vision study or plan kind of in your pamphlets for kind of review. But again, those 5 priorities were again, foster climate smart, resilient, and regenerative food systems. The other was build healthy and local communities, drive the next generation of talent and tools, enhance the understanding of agriculture, and collaborate on smarter regulations. And I think it would be a good indication for this board to kind of really organize some of our meetings under those themes to be able to move those issues forward.
Could I make a suggestion? The next decade, thinking about where investment is made and continued investment for resiliency of food production in California for the kinds of crops we have. I think there's a need for more focused kinds of presentations about who's looking at what kinds of cropping differences, what different commodities are evaluating. I mean, we had a lot of good discussion around the pest presentations that were done. And I think thinking through in a more holistic way, it would be taking, like, we did a roadmap for climate change. How do farmers think about it? What are they looking for adaptation? That was at the beginning of even standing up climate smart ag programs. But honestly, that's got almost 15 plus, well, not quite, but it's coming up on 15 years. And I think the sense of urgency and some of the new infrastructure we've added with UC Merced and their entrance into that, UC Santa Cruz and Merced being added to the Ag Experiment Station, and just looking at all the different ways. We have a chapter, a few pages about some of the ag issues and our many, many climate documents. But I think bringing focus to that could be very productive and engaging for our public as a way to raise the issues to be thinking about. Just a suggestion.
My family is experimenting a lot with alternative
companies for resiliency of the wine vineyards and grapes as a commodity, but I'm sure there's crossover. So I'm happy to look into of the companies we've invested in, which ones could be applicable to other crops as well. Some of it's microbial, but yeah, I know grapes are just one commodity, so I'd have to look into that.
Strawberries is doing that, Western Growers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep. Linda, go right ahead. Sure.
So as to, we're talking topics for 2024, just in general.
Right, that's correct.
So one of the things we're currently working on, doing surveys, town halls, et cetera, is developing Vision 2040 for UC A&R, and not just UC A&R, but what can UC do as far as solving and offering help for California's challenges. I think at some point in the May or June timeline, maybe July, but probably May or June, it'd be useful to perhaps have that topic on a board meeting to give a presentation of what the current status of the vision is and get feedback from the board before it's finalized. The timing right now is to be finalizing it in the summer, and hopefully have it ready for release no later than August or September.
Yep, that sounds real good. Be good to have the input too. Joy, go right ahead. Start.
Love to get an update on what's happening with the state fair.
Gloria, go right ahead.
I'd love to make sure that we get an update from the Land Equity Task Force and what's going on, the issues that we are exploring there.
That'd be great. They had their very first convening October 30th or 31st, at the end of October. And we will be voting at next week's SGC meeting on the designated seat for CDFA representative from our own BIPOC committee, and that will be confirmed next week. And in conjunction with that, next year, 2024, will be the 10th anniversary of the Sustainable Ag Land Conservation Program, which has received considerable funding covering a lot of acres. And I feel that in many of the conversations where I am, people tend to overlook farmland conservation as a tool for climate change. And we're hoping that some of that might lead to some potential solutions for the land equity issues as well. So that might be a nice follow-up too.
And if I may, I think one of the recommendations that we had as well to the department with both the BIPOC and Small Farm Advisory Committee was to have kind of a joint meeting with them, and the land equity might be the good topic
yeah, maybe a
for
good time to bring everything together.
yes,
Yeah.
for that convening.
I have
Michelle?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to build on Secretary Ross's comments on the resilience topic, and I'd like to offer, I know Josh, I mentioned it to you, but we are, we have TNC Nature Conservancy owns an island out in the Delta, Staten Island, and we are converting about a couple thousand acres of crops from corn to rice, which will help reduce subsidence and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we're also combining that with some wetland restoration. And so we'd love to offer a tour there just to bring folks out there to see what we're doing. And I think in that vein, if there's a way to invite discussion, maybe as part of a meeting of some other examples, case studies, these could be projects that where growers have received funding from Climate Smart Ag, and just really understand and learn from each other on what's working and maybe where challenges are arising. So in the spirit of trying to move the needle on this issue, and kind of digging deeper on what's possible and where we can make improvements, I think be a good topic.
Thank you. Eric?
Just on that same topic, I like it.
Yeah, I
Um,
do too.
We looked into, and I personally looked into issues around heat stress among farm workers. So that's just another subject that could be part of a master agenda on climate adaptation resilience going into the future. So.
I was curious if there's any crossover conversations with Secretary Wade Crowfoot and the 30 by 30 ambition. Oh, amazing. So there's a lot of conversations around like, has anyone mapped out like what 30% of California would look like, and if there's agriculture that's on the 30 by 30?
So in fact, there is, our council meets next, when I'm gone. And actually on the land part, our calculation is with what's already in place and any new measures that have happened since 30 by 30 was announced, we're about 26% of our goal of 30%. And the marine waters is, I think it's less than 20%, but we have good baselines to start from. And I'm sure we'll get updates at the next council meeting. And some of that, there's a lot of work going into that because concurrently, because of drought and SGMA, there's been mapping done about what lands might be most vulnerable to repurposing and trying to the extent it's possible, since land use is very local, trying to map out where there could be maximum benefits as well as value for the community that may lose productive farmland, should that happen, to what would create connectivity with refuges in the Central Valley, where it would make connectivity for wildlife habitat or corridors. And so there's a lot of that kind of work that's been going on. It will be a new deputy, the Deputy Secretary Jen Norris, who was leading those efforts for Natural Resources Agency. He's now the Executive Director of the Wildlife Conservation Board. So if you got projects, go talk to Jen. And I'm trying to remember if they've named a new deputy for leading that effort, but there's a lot going into that, and it is multi-agency.
It might be good to get an update sometime during the year.
Yeah.
Linda.
Another new topic, hydrogen. As you
Yes.
may know, California received a $1.2 billion award from the Department of Energy around hydrogen, being a hydrogen hub. There's 2 or 3 ways that intersects with agriculture. I think it'd be great for this board to learn more about that, and that could happen. I don't want to offer January, but February or March or something like that. We've got folks already working on it.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple really key ways it interacts with agriculture. Production of hydrogen from biomass being one, but another one that's very intriguing is the whole concept of utilizing ammonia as the key way to store and transport hydrogen. And when you split the hydrogen out of ammonia, you're left with nitrogen, which, as we all know, is an important source of fertilizer.
Very true.
Yeah.
All really interesting topics too. No, I'll throw sustainable pest management updates in because we're looking at notification process coming forward probably sometime this year. I think probably going to be an interesting topic as we move forward.
It will continue to be a major topic, and I think the whole category of biologicals
And
and
biologicals.
alternatives, which so
Yep.
many companies are doing a lot of work on.
Definitely.
Mhm. Not to scoop anything from the Western Growers' 2nd annual biological summit, but
Yes. Yeah, no, the first one was extremely successful and pretty amazing. Eric.
Don, just piling on to Glenda's idea here on hydrogen. And we haven't done it often, but periodically we've done like joint meetings with other boards that have common interests. And this is one just sort of utilization of waste products, whether it be ag waste or forest waste. So the Board of Forestry has a subgroup called the Joint Commission on Wood Products Innovation, and they're very interested in this topic. I think, are you a part of that? you're on that committee. So that's a, you know,
That's a UC, CSU.
Right. Yeah, and then also there's the governor's wildfire task force that is also very interested in this topic. And so related to that is, you know, the electrification of the vehicle fleet in California and what portion of the vehicle fleet is not likely, or is it going to be slow to electrify? And I
Right.
think ag uses are maybe some of those. Trucking is one where it's not clear that electrification is on the immediate horizon. So if not electric, what fuel source are we going to use, and how can we decarbonize that fuel source as much as possible? So that whole suite of issues would be really interesting.
And if I could add, transportation would be a player in that because they're looking at where the corridors are, where the trucking needs specifically are, and then how do we do some of that advanced planning with utilities as well? So there's a lot to unpack from that.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I've looked at agriculture as, you know, how do we move forward?
Electrify the farm.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, but then that also, we also would
there's
want to,
limitations in equipment size and the job that that equipment does and the power usage is
Well, that's why the interest in hydrogen.
right. Exactly.
so what we would need to look at, which is a huge topic, within this is the, how the, grid is going to handle it all.
That is an issue. As I drove up this morning, I passed 5 miles of solar on both sides of the road that are and continuing construction.
Storage.
Wow. So we need a joint meeting of the PUC, the Energy Commission, the Board of Forestry.
No, you're talking,
It
yeah. you're
sounds
talking about
sounds like a
huge.
major meeting,
Well, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of.
but maybe that's warranted
Mhm.
as well.
One of
It's not,
Electrify the farm would be a topic.
I think it's actually kind of a cool idea for us to have a big conference. We
Mm.
haven't done that since we had a water one.
mhm.
Right.
Yeah, flood one.
One of our transportation partners at Jackson Family Wines, the Biaggi Bros, they're converting their entire bus fleet to hydrogen, and they're having a lot of success with like in terms of like the heavy load that they carry, because they also transport Budweiser and other beverage companies too. So the Biaggi Bros, so they'd be a good, yeah.
Mhm. No, we're gonna have to be looking at other sources besides just electric as we move forward, no question.
Over here.
Oh, sorry,
Everybody
Joy.
point at me.
Go right ahead.
Don, you mentioned the reporting, and I'm wondering, if that has a timeliness issue with it that needs to go just in terms of when we're scheduling things to discuss, because there's regulation that's in process.
That is true. Yeah, that is a multi question topic, but yeah, definitely DPR is moving forward currently with notification process with trial programs throughout the state, and then will be coming. I'm not sure how soon that final rule will be coming out, but
But it would be great if we could weigh in before that
before the
happens.
final rule, true.
So that's going to be fast, particularly if we're not meeting in January.
No, you're right. I think public comment period ends in January, doesn't it?
I'm not sure, but, and so I don't know what contingency there is for us to look at it as a board prior, if the comment period is ending so fast.
No, I'm not positive on that, but all right.
Love that. It's good to be secretary.
Not sure. Well, the final rule will be later, I'm sure, but I know public comment is open currently.
The board does have the option of scheduling a January meeting. I mean, if that is what's needed. But again, you would need a quorum present.
And it can't be virtual.
Well, it could be hybrid, but a majority would still need to be in person.
It wouldn't have to be essentially on the 2nd of January. It could be at a different date, a special meeting or,
We could just schedule the meeting.
all right,
Well, first let's find out.
let's
what-
find, I think we need the
Working on it.
information before we talk about having a special meeting or a regular meeting in January for that one topic. David, and then,
We have a packed list already, Josh and President. I missed a meeting in June that covered USDA Resilient Food System Infrastructure Program and regional food business centers. I mean, I'd be curious to see like how all of that is working out this next year.
Later in the year would be helpful because of all the organizational work that is, some of it's completed, but a lot of it still isn't. And so I would say definitely with the funding streams and the many players that are interested in this, it would be good to like a year later, what do we have?
Yeah.
And it would be
How does
good
that sound? Yeah.
to put like F3 in that discussion as well.
We could put F3, but I
I mean,
think the
F3 is-
BEAM
yeah.
initiative needs to be part
Mhm.
of the topic that he mentioned. Oh, geez, Karen. Oh, man, that was really smart.
oh, we're
Um,
okay.
And
No, it's okay.
it's also Ag Vision #1.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I was trying to think too, how do we incorporate F3 into one of these meetings so we can get updated on how things are progressing?
Well, F3 might be part of a larger ag food tech discussion
Okay,
versus the food.
and I know Glenda, you
I don't
had,
think it's food business support really.
no, but yeah, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to offer up another topic because it was a hot one at the Farm Bureau the last couple days. Access to insurance by the agricultural sector. Lots of discussions and speakers and angst over that.
Was that for exactly what type of insurance was the issue?
It was several different types. It was related to theft and vehicles and fire and just access to insurance in general. By various parts of the ag sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people had a lot of angst over it. Now, I don't pretend to understand it. I'm thinking it might be something this board needs to understand a little better.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it is definitely complex. I know that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying a deep dive, maybe just an informational.
Maybe we can bring somebody in. Yeah, we brought people from. All right. Gloria,
So this is a topic I'm not sure if other folks are kind of interested, but I always want to have something on our agendas that have to do with hunger and food access. And, I would love to kind of track the implementation of SB 1000, which is the Planning for Healthy Communities Act, which actually requires as a part of updating general plans, cities' general plans, that they include healthy food access, as well as an environmental justice element. And I know that that's not really something that people know a lot about. They don't know that that's a new requirement. They don't know that healthy food access is included. And it would be really great to kind of elevate that and bring that to the attention of folks.
yeah, I agree. We have enough for 5 years now, but we do that every December. It's amazing the good ideas that come up from the board. So,
Josh some flexibility.
yeah, it gives Josh a wide variety of topics to integrate and bring the specialists in, which is really critical to the state.
Although Mike was not able to be here, he did provide some comments as well for some potential meeting topics. One of the things that as our kind of dairy representative, he is definitely interested in kind of an update on dairy in general, bringing in a variety of the associations to kind of hear kind of where the industry is, kind of an industry update, which we've done periodically as well. So that's one idea that Mike had. The other is, and it goes, Glenda leverages some of the work that you're doing in regards to kind of a lot of the investment and work that's going into UC Merced and what they're scaling up there, kind of doing a more in-person, seeing what's happening in Merced, some of the innovation operations that are going on. And Mike even threw in the potential for a farm visit, so we could see his operation as well. So it makes a nice, lovely day.
That would be a nice option. I agree.
Josh. On that note, you're just making me think. What about meat production and then fish? Does that fit into this or?
Yeah, aquaculture specifically would be so huge if we could move the needle on that. The first 2 years I was secretary, Paula Daniels did a really deep dive on what the challenges are, but it's clearly a topic that's necessary. There's a lot of work going on right now, and UC Davis is helping with Roots of Change on just more local scale meat production and processing. So I think some of that will get covered, I believe. Well, no, it won't, because your food systems, because dairy and livestock have their own. Yeah. So it does have to be a separate.
However, USDA rural development programs do a lot. of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Really talking about.
Yeah. But I would love to see aquaculture, but it's a feed issue, cost issue. And we started conversations because my vision is more about what we can do in urban settings, not the marine coastal, which creates and try to re-engage our friends at Fish and Wildlife. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also like to to have a conversation or get an update on regarding education and class, ag in the classroom. Hear about the ag teachers at CATA conferences. The ag teachers are always challenged with resources and infrastructure. So to hear, what their needs and concerns are, how they can be helped to boost the infrastructure that they have, because those are the source of inspiration for students to come into higher education. And if we are challenged at higher ed with enrollment, I think, we need to start going, to K-12, the ag teachers, all those kind of conversations. So it would be interesting to have a perspective.
First, we have to stop them all going to Oklahoma State University. I just beg them to come back when they finish.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
And Mike brought up the dairy industry. It might not hurt to just have input give everybody 15 minutes and talk about their industry. I don't know, their associations or groups, and just see what their issues are, because I had a long talk with someone yesterday about the wine grape industry, and there's a lot of issues. Well, yeah, there you go.
Well, actually, the livestock dairy discussion just reminded me of a rather controversial issue coming up next year. There is currently signature gathering in Sonoma County to outlaw CAFOs.
Right, I saw that.
And whether we like it or not, I have a hunch this board's going to be asked to at least look at that somehow. So we might want to figure out what that means for us.
Yep.
And it looks likely they're going to get the signatures.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
It's extremely unfortunate.
Right.
It's very unfortunate.
And I
And
think
they're targeting what they're calling large producers are companies with, under 50 employees. You just.
Jim Reichert.
Jim Reichert, well, and he just had a fire. So
Yeah.
his life is hell right now. It's very unfortunate.
Anyway, that's going to be a really huge topic for the livestock sector and poultry sector.
Right.
all
No,
very
you're
big,
right.
Very big.
I don't know, Joy, if you want to chime in as well, but I just sat down for our annual board meeting and went over a whole slate of issues facing the wine industry from, of course, powdery mildew, climate change, heat domes, frosts. And so we're looking at and doing some trials around which varietals specifically can be resilient, but then also clonal material to withstand some of the heat domes and pressures. We're also experiencing a lot of, from the labor standpoint, just housing short, like lack of affordable housing. And so we're exploring how can we partner with other wineries to like really, yeah, sponsor and have affordable housing within Sonoma County. Because it's a huge challenge. So yeah, there's a whole slate of issues facing the wine industry, but not something that we're taking lightly.
So we have a full plate. Yeah, and true.
Step up, I say.
Have a good joke.
Anything else?
No, I just back to the secretary's comment on how many people are showing up for the regenerative ag. So I was thinking regenerative and cannabis, those are two things that get the audience filled. So maybe
Definitely.
we could think about a name change of some kind. Regenerative cannabis agriculture, we'd fill the room every
There you
time.
go. Yeah, no, I remember those days when this place was full and
Yeah, but
standing
now
room only.
Industry is
Well,
very
again,
hard to get,
we have a
very hard
virtual
to get.
meeting now, people, so a lot of times
That's
we
true.
have
A lot of people
online
are
participation,
online.
which
We
was
hope they
an
stick with
option
us.
previously, so.
I have
By the way, do we
information.
need to do public comment on this?
I have information on
Yeah.
where we are on notification rulemaking over the Department of Pesticide Regulation. Public hearings are scheduled, the remaining ones are scheduled for December 13th in Clovis, December 14th in Ventura, December 19th will be virtual. The comment period closes January 12th. And the director is happy to make a presentation should we have any meetings scheduled. The board may want to consider asking that, depending on the level of participation, asking for an extension comment period.
And then inviting the director to come speak to us at our first meeting.
I can't say it would be acted upon, but I think the level of interest in the topic, there might be a lot
Some
going on.
leeway.
They've spent a lot of time doing a lot of outreach, but that's a big issue. Yeah.
It's a big issue and the concern about it is only starting to filter out.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as that widens, that merits a good argument for more time. Should we move that the board make this request? Send a letter asking?
I don't know if we can take action on an item, but can we provide directives to or instruct staff to request?
Undersecretary Birdsong has been our point on sustainable pest management because that group started the day after she was sworn in, that and supply chain infrastructure. And so we are very collaborative with our partners at DPR. And if the board is expressing this kind of interest based on what you're hearing from stakeholders in your communities, I think it's appropriate that we engage in a conversation with DPR and keep the board apprised of that, since we have not had that as a specific topic on the agenda, remembering what I was listening to Hyde talk about this morning. I know. Just a suggestion.
Yes, I agree. And really our first board meeting would be February 6th or 13th, depending on how that works out. Josh?
Yes. So, I mean. I can take a poll of board members for dates in January and we can schedule a January meeting. If that is the preference.
All right. That sounds like a good plan, Josh.
Okay.
All right. No other comments?
Hey, Don, I have a comment.
Sure, go right ahead.
And I'll run it through you, but the answer may more appropriately come from the secretary or Josh. I don't know if, just my limited opinion from my time on the board, that that we have many opportunities or have had many opportunities as a board to have I guess the way I'm thinking about it, more meaningful engagement with the legislative branch. I know the department does a fantastic job in updating our board periodically on, here are bills that made it, this is what we're watching. Obviously there's interaction that occurs with the department as is appropriate in the executive branch, but as an executive branch advisory board, at a minimum, considering when you just look at, Assembly and Senate ag committees, new leadership, new members, I wish there was a way we can think through how to, as a board, have some productive engagement, meaningful engagement with policymakers charged with the future of ag policy. So to the extent we may have considerations, advice, input, again, we have to be careful there, but it would be, I think there has to be some appropriate way where, again, as a board, we're engaging on issues for where the state of California, at least its legislative branch, have prioritized, which in part will definitely impact the future of the state of California, will impact our sister executive agencies in the implementation phase. And I just feel like as an advisory board, at times there may not have been as many opportunities to engage earlier as opposed to the implementation phase, which obviously is an after the fact role. So whatever shape that may take as is appropriate, I would consider us kind of thinking through that and perhaps creating some opportunities.
All right, thank you, Chris. And as a general update, I think we have done some engagement previously, and my apologies. I don't think last year or maybe since COVID, we've had that opportunity, but usually at the beginning of the year, we would invite the chair of both the Senate and Ag committee to provide a presentation and have that opportunity for the board to kind of engage with the leadership of committees. And that's definitely something we can start again. It's just been, I think with the schedules, the hybrid format, et cetera, is not something that we've brought back, but it's definitely something we can look forward to next year. And I can work with our legislative team and Rachel, our deputy secretary, to see when the kind of the best opportunity would be to schedule something like that.
That'd be great, Josh. I think that'd be very helpful. Thanks, Chris. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Doria. I'm looking.
So I was just kind of reflecting on the committees, and this isn't an agenda item, but I think it does have to do with planning for next year. And I'd really like to figure out how to get support to establish a regular meeting schedule, because the Regenerative Ag / Climate Committee is more than just regenerative ag. And I feel like if we had a regular meeting schedule, we could meet not only to get updates on what's happening with the regenerative ag project, but also to get feedback from the committee to see what other things we might want to work on. And I'm unsure of how to go about doing that, setting up a regular meeting schedule.
Well, yeah, we can definitely touch bases, Doria, and I appreciate that. I think the challenge, again, with all committees, since it is actually a committee that has been made by action of the board, it is subject to those Bagley-Keene rules. So that would either be, in person, either complete teleconference meeting, which has different reporting requirements for locations versus, I'll have to double check that, but different reporting locations for participants accessible. Versus the hybrid meetings, but I can look at that and then we can see how we can schedule that. I think a challenge that we have with committee meetings in general is, again, we do need a quorum to be able to conduct business. And so a lot of times it's making sure that there is availability. And I know it's hard from the board standpoint, just from, the first Tuesdays of a month sometimes. So putting that in advance, but we could definitely work on that and survey members to say how often we want to meet, and the time's more than happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, like even just like a quarterly meeting, just something that's set in calendar, so that we can, see what's possible.
Thanks, Doria.
And so my question was more process oriented as well, around letters that the chair would submit on behalf of the board. I know a lot of us are watching different bills and different legislations for our own representative organizations. But if there is something outside of maybe the water committee that would be worthwhile to comment on, what would be the process to sort of talk about it, I guess, to make sure that we're all aligned on the perspective?
So agricultural issues not pertaining to one of the committees that we've already formed, I think we typically discuss at the board, and if it's
So Yes, I think it's definitely an opportunity and please, at any time, if the board member feels that they would like to add something to an agenda, please email me and that's something I can confer with the chair with or the president to ensure that that is included or not included on the agenda, but that's a way that we can begin discussion on it. So happy to entertain that. It's just, again, providing notice and time. I've had several board members at times reach out after the agenda has been posted or after we've made notice and it's like, sorry, we can't address that. But also I think a challenge is to, especially and going back to Chris, to your comment as well on the legislative front, we are an advisory body to the secretary and governor. We do not directly have a legislative advisory capacity. So our direction is usually the advising both the secretary and governor on policy issues.
Right.
And on my end, I actually just want to commend the CDA staff, Karen and Josh. I had a chance to participate on several of the California-Mexico Border Relations Council, so thanks for giving me the opportunity. But I love the engagement, the commitment, and a lot of folks from the South that I deal with myself in Imperial County, San Diego. So I just want to thank you for the commitment, and I'd like to continue on that CDFA Mexico Relations Council. I think it's fascinating just what's down south, all the animal health and plant health intricacies that are dealing with that I was just amazed with. And I think it's something that we should definitely continue on with our partners to the south. And I think in March or April, there's Agrobaja. And that's something that's a really big, ag expo that we have. And I think in Mexicali in my backyard, but they deal with ag tech and they deal with a lot of other issues, but definitely on my end, I want to thank you for the commitment on the Border Relations Council and look forward to continue participating on that front.
Yeah, Frank, thank you so much. And I think we should touch bases. I think both the department from our Climate Smart Ag perspective and also the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, there's potentially activation. We're also working with UC A&R in regards to Agrobaja, which is, I think, April or March.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah,
It'll be
okay,
nice
great.
and warm. Yeah.
That's
To
for sure.
To that end, I'd love to be in those conversations. I'm working with the federal government down in Mexico at the Senate level on some biodiversity bills. And they're changing administrations to a female president. Most likely she will 64% approval rating, but they want to do a Mexico, California Oceans Week collaboration. And they were really successful in Mexico. So whomever I can talk to about that would be great.
Excellent.
Lots of topics. All right.
I did have some housekeeping.
Go right
I did
ahead,
have
Josh.
some housekeeping items before. I know I usually get asked this question a lot. A lot of times terms do come to an end. And it's been kind of the practice of the board that you continue to serve in capacity unless you are reappointed or are asked to kind of thank you for your service. Yes. So just to know, if you are one of the members that has reached your term limit and you do not wish to continue in capacity, I just need a letter from you to the secretary or myself or to the governor kind of expressing that sentiment so we can start that process, because it is a Bagley-Keene issue. I'm not Bagley-Keene, but what is that, Form 700? Statement of economic
Yes.
interest kind of that we need to close out officially. But again, it's just kind of a standard process that we go through.
Josh, can you remind us, are we 2 or 4-year terms here?
Each board member has a fixed 4-year term. You may have been appointed into a term that has already been going. So you do not, once you're appointed, it does not mean you serve for 4 years. You serve in that seat, you serve in that position for whatever that term remainder is.
Is everybody aware of their terms?
I will recirculate with everyone if you have questions.
Josh, maybe you can, update everybody individually and let them know where they are.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful. Because I think, because of the difference in terms and when people came in and.
Yes.
Yep, that would be great. Do we have anything else before we go to public comment? I think we're good. Yep, go ahead, Janae.
I just want to extend thanks and gratitude to the to CDFA and the staff for their work on the Queensland
fruit fly issues down in Ventura County and working through a lot of the quarantine zones. And so the education that we're providing down in Southern California, as well as the other impacted areas of the state for the Mediterranean fly as well. And then just putting a call out for education to our urban counterparts, also to engage in this process as well. If we want to protect agriculture in California, it's a hand-holding of activities between commercial agriculture and home agriculture as well. And so just making sure that the education is getting out to all of Californians about what we can do to protect gardens, crops, commercial foods, and eradicate this invasive pest.
Thank you, Janae. Very well put. And yeah, my hat's off to Andy and his team, CDFA and NRCS for the tremendous work that they've been doing to try and get this problem contained and hopefully eliminated. It's a real serious problem in California this year. I mean, the fines have been astronomical compared to what we've seen in the past. So my hat's off to the whole team for moving on this and reacting quickly. All right, Josh, would you check for public comment? Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If we have anybody that would like to speak.
Hi, if you'd like to make public comment, please use your hand icon and I can unmute your line. I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
All right. That moves us to adjournment, and I'd really like to thank everyone on our board for getting to our meetings this year and for your advice, your input. Your knowledge is just really fantastic, and I think we have a really good, well-rounded board that does cover so many different topics that have to do with food and agriculture within California's borders, so, and the world. So thank you again, and wish everyone a great Christmas season. And we may end up seeing you in January. We'll see how that works out. If not, it'll be February. So thank you. And
Perfect.
thank everybody online. Appreciate your staying with us.
And I'd also like to thank Isadra and Claudia. Thank you so much for all your services this year in terms of being our translators. We greatly appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you, Josh and Secretary, for doing such a fantastic job with our board. Always a pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
We are adjourned. Thank you.